In 2008, Matt Reeves directed a film called Cloverfield. It has a pretty underrated and underappreciated cast, I might say. It was a movie that I actually went to theater and remembered kind of doing some deep dive research on the internet in those early 2008 days in January, trying to find all the mysteries that Cloverfield had to offer. Because being a found footage film, there's a lot of things that you really don't see because there's a lot of moving camera motions, but it does have a pretty spectacular cinematography. I think that this movie actually does a lot with the genre, even though I'm not a huge found footage genre fan, and I do think that it's kind of outstayed and outplayed its welcome. But 2008, it was kicking on all cylinders, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Matt Reeves, if you recognize that name, and then you probably should, this is one of his earlier movies, and I think it's not his first movie. Let Me In, I believe, was one of his first ones. That's the one he got really a lot of notoriety for. But Cloverfield, a found footage film that definitely has no right being as good as it is, but because of Matt Reeves behind the camera with really amazing talent, he's able to deliver something really cinematic here. He's also done a cool trilogy called The Planet of the Apes with Andy Serkis, one of my favorite trilogies of recent memory, in the last decade at least. And last year he did The Batman with Robert Pattinson and Paul Dano, a big almost sideways movie awards nominee and winner on some categories too. So I really enjoy Matt Reeves' movies, and I haven't seen them all, but everything I've seen of him has been something entertaining and something worth watching. Now, if you haven't seen Cloverfield in a while, essentially the plot is a group of friends in New York City have a kind of a big farewell party for their friend Jason, who just accepted a job in Japan, so he's leaving in the next couple of days. And they decide they're going to document and get testimonials from the people from the party, so those duties fall to HUD, who is played by T.J. Miller. I had totally forgot that he was in this movie. We see HUD's character going to different people in the party, getting testimonials of their memories with Jason. Jason, by the way, is played by Mike Fogel here. We do see some other familiar actors that we've seen in recent memory, but at that time they're pretty much kind of maybe unknowns at the time. We see Marlena, who's played by Lizzie Chaplin. I really like Lizzie Chaplin whenever she's in something, so really cool to see a kind of a beginning role for her. Also, we get a character named Lily, who's played by Jessica Lucas, and I just watched a movie a couple of weeks ago called Evil Dead Remake that in 2013. That was really fun to see her in there, but she also pops up in this movie. We get some other actors here. I believe the Jason, his person he had a bad breakup with, her name's Beth, and she is played by Odette Annabelle. Now, I haven't seen her in too many things, so let's take a look at her real quick. This is pretty much her biggest role here, but she does fine. She's a very minor role here. But we do follow these group of friends as HUD is doing these testimonials, and we hear a loud explosion, and they go up to the roof, and they see another big explosion in New York City, and so they try to go down to the ground floor, see what's going on, and then the Statue of Liberty's head kind of rolls into frame, and we see this big giant monster in the background, and New York City is under attack. With New York under attack, Jason's like, we gotta go save Beth, I need to save her. And their friends agree, so they trek across New York with monsters and military alike, fighting and waging this big epic battle in New York City. Matt Reeves was able to create something cinematic and really epic in feeling, especially after watching it. I was on the edge of my seat, and I'm not a big found footage genre fan. These movies are made really cheaply, and they're able to be pumped out by the studios, and they just kind of fall flat. There's been so many of these movies over the years, and they really kind of outplayed and outstayed their welcome, and eventually fans just stopped going to the theater to watch these movies. But in 2008, Cloverfield was made with $25 million as their budget, and opening weekend alone, it made $40 million. And the worldwide gross for Cloverfield was $172.3 million. It made a lot of money, and these are the kind of where the found footage genre really started kicking off in full force. Found footage had been around for a while now because Blair Witch Project, which may not have been the first found footage film, but it was the one that at the time did have the most notoriety behind it. I hadn't seen Blair Witch Project when I watched this film in 2008, but going back, I could definitely see there was some really great groundwork of camera movements and cinematography in that film that I can totally understand why a studio would try to go for that movie. Making a cheap movie and spinning a profit like Blair Witch did, I can totally understand why movie execs thought that was probably a good idea and start churning out to these movies. And generally, these movies do kind of fall flat, but I feel Cloverfield does kind of stand above the other films in the genre because it provides a bigger scope and bigger feel. It creates this big giant monster. The monster is pretty terrifying, and it creates this big epic kind of war-torn New York City. And we're seeing average people travel and traverse the city through a kind of a war zone to try to get to a friend and kind of rescue them too. I really like the cast in this movie because seeing younger versions of actors that I do recognize, and especially I like some of the projects they have signed on for since Cloverfield. It's really cool to actually see that. Jessica Lucas and Lizzie Chaplin, T.J. Miller are all ones I really like seeing, especially seeing them in this movie. They're really good in here as well. I really like the feel of the kind of New York is being torn and torn apart. There's some really cool set pieces in this movie and some really good scenery. The scene in the subway is kind of haunting and scary with these little creatures going after them, and the ending is rather unsettling as well. Cloverfield is definitely an upper echelon found footage film. Cloverfield for me is in my personal top 5 found footage movies, and I just really enjoyed this experience. Does it give it all the answers you're wanting? No, it doesn't. And I don't know why this giant monster was attacking us. And there are 3 movies in this quote-unquote Cloverfield trilogy now, with 10 Cloverfield Lane and the Cloverfield Paradox, all releasing years after Cloverfield came out in 2008. I do like 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think that actually is, if I had to rank the 3 films, I think Cloverfield Lane is actually better than this Cloverfield movie, 2008's version. But you're comparing apples to oranges here, because 10 Cloverfield Lane gives us a really crazy performance by John Goodman, where Cloverfield's more of an experience here. You're having this found footage, and it's more epic in scope, not just kind of locked in this little enclosed environment as in 10 Cloverfield Lane. I've never seen Cloverfield Paradox. I heard that was not worth seeing. So that is something to kind of take a note there. Cloverfield doesn't really give you a whole lot of answers that you're wanting, and I kind of want to know what his job was. Why was Jason leaving New York to go to Japan? What was that company like? What was this monster? I know there was a bunch of speculation videos in 2008 about there's this monster. If you slow down the tracking of the film, you can actually see something hit the water behind in this little footage here. There's a lot of that going around, and I think if this movie came out now, you would see thousands of people doing breakdown videos of this and what actually was going on in this Cloverfield movie. I thoroughly enjoy this experience. It's definitely a solid movie to watch. I recommend it to you. I believe this is streaming on HBO Max, so something that's super easy to it's accessible, and you guys should definitely take a watch at the film. So that is my quick takes on Cloverfield. Have you guys seen this movie? Have you not? What's your guys' takes? Let me know in the comments section down below. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube. Make sure you guys follow our podcast wherever your podcasts are streaming at Almost Sideways Movie Podcast. Again, my name is Adam. Until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video.